Thank you for coming, Russell Cleveland. I appreciate it. I know we're out of the way here, but we're hoping that anybody and everybody that wants to see this has an access to see it. So
great. Thanks for hosting. This is great.
Thanks for coming, you guys, and the floor is yours.
All right. Well, a couple new faces. Good to see you all. Those who don't know me, I'm Russ Cleveland, running for U.S. House. I'm from right here in St. Regis, so just down the road from you all. So you guys are neighbors for me. But wife and I are raising 6 kids out there and have a ranch at the end of Oak Creek Road. And grew up in Montana. I'm from Stevensville originally. Was in the Navy for some time. Went in as a search and rescue swimmer, and then I was an aviation electrician. Served 4 active, 4 reserve. Got out, went back to school, finished an education in nutrition, an MBA from Seattle University. Worked in finance for almost a decade, and then started my own company called Rocky Mountain Kids. It was a child care company down in Colorado that I grew to become Colorado's largest child care provider. So we took care of about 9,000 kids across 42 locations, and just really fell in love with small business, with education, with seeing the benefit of what really high quality, affordable child care does for families. And my wife and I moved back to Montana in 2021 after we lost our oldest daughter, Madison, to leukemia, and she was only 13, and it was a pretty humbling moment for us as a family, and decided we wanted to slow down and live close to family again, and so that's what brought us home here. Looked out in the Bitterroot, but Bitterroot had been a victim of the post-Yellowstone era, so Hollywood had hit the Bitterroot Valley, and so we decided to look outside of Missoula within an hour, hour and a half, and found a beautiful spot out there on the river in St. Regis. So been here ever since. Some of the things we worked on since being home, my wife and I are both coaches. She serves on the school board, and worked on a housing project there in St. Regis, built a 7-plex for teachers right across the street from the school, and sold my company in 2024, child care company, and then decided to get in this race April of last year after pediatric cancer research was one of the first things that DOJ had cut as part of their broader federal cuts. So pediatric cancer research was one of the first NIH cuts that was cut as part of the federal funding cuts. And having lost a child to cancer, it was a pretty aggravating moment, and so rather than bitch about it, I decided to start paying attention and get in the fight and start looking at how we can get away from this division and polarity as a country and start focusing on common sense policy that actually helps Americans thrive again. So that is what got me into this race. I didn't come into this race with some 20-point plan or a big platform. I really just want to get out, talk to Montanans. The Montana I grew up in was a purple one, and what I've realized in the last 10 years is we've slid very far right, and I really believe in balance of power, balance of policy, and having dialogue and some really collaboration on making sure that everybody's represented. So I rolled out a platform after about 6 months of talking to Montanans, and it was very focused on issues that impact everybody, so healthcare, housing, childcare, public lands, but everything was really focused around getting a hold of this corruption that we see on both sides of the aisle in DC and in our government now. Campaign finance, stock trading in Congress, excessive terms, a code of ethics on judiciary, the judiciary branch, moratorium on lobbying the public service, things like that. So trying to really restore integrity back in our representation. So that is really what I'm running on, and have really enjoyed getting out. It's been a breath of fresh air to get out and talk to Montanans over the last year and just start building some relationships. The field, I'm running on the Democratic ticket. I consider myself an independent Democrat. What that means is I'm not beholden to the national party. I think the Democratic Party has lost sight of what it was originally founded on, which is working class values and taking care of our working class. And we have a lot of work to do to get that back. And so I think it's important to stay focused on what's best for Montanans and not necessarily what DC thinks is important. How I do that is I'm running on individual contributions only. Don't have any PAC money, don't have any special interest groups backing me. It's just Montanans. And I think there's a lot to be said about that right now. Everybody else in this race running is backed by one of those things. I'm the only one running that's individual contributions only on either side of the aisle. And so I think now is a time where we have an opportunity to redefine how we want to be represented in Montana. And so I guess I'll pause there and answer some questions. I don't know. How about it?
Israel,
Yeah.
what would you like to say, if anything?
Yeah, I think, you know, the relationship with Israel is a long-standing and complex one. But what I see right now is a lack of accountability for them as a country. I think their aggression in the Middle East has gone unchecked, and we're funding it as an ally to them. And until we can start seeing them obey international law, I don't think we need to be funding it as a country. We need to take care of Americans. So I'm a big supporter of reeling that in. You know, it's interesting that we're fighting for things like healthcare, education, and in their country that has universal healthcare, that has free education, and yet we're still sending them billions of dollars a year in armaments to, you know, to assist in their military agenda. So those are all things I think we need to revisit and say, hey, let's take a look at this. So that's where I stand on that. So, yeah.
If you were in office right now, what would you vote on the SAVE Act, the Election Act?
The Save America Act, Election Act, I would vote no as it stands right now.
May I ask why?
Yeah, I think there's too many provisions that aren't worked out that are specific to creating barriers or hurdles and not focused enough on just identification. And so I don't think anyone has a problem presenting ID. I think the extra hurdles written in right now that right now disproportionately affect our Native American population, anyone that's been remarried or carries a different last name from marriage. It's going to make it more difficult, especially in remote areas, which disproportionately affects places like Montana, to get a quality vote in. And so I think it needs more work to put it there.
Are you for people showing ID for voting?
Sure.
What about citizenship?
Citizens are the only ones who can vote right now. And so I think it's important to say, you know, that has not, if there has been issue with that in the past, then sure, let's resolve the issue. But if you're not a citizen, you shouldn't be allowed to vote in this country anyways.
And nobody else is going to speak up, you know I gotta look.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so timber and access.
Mm-hmm.
Monroe County is, what is it, 80 something?
87% owned by the state and federal.
And the federal, with the majority being federal.
Yep.
We've got mitigation issues that are basically simmering on the underground that could explode and not just hurt people, but hurt our entire county and the economy. What would you do to try and open up, get our loggers back to work, put a mill back down in St. Regis?
Yeah, I think that's the important part is Montana used to have a thriving logging industry with localized mills, and
That's what the West End was built on, was the timber industry.
Yep, and you know, combination of a lack of infrastructure and support and rising costs without, you know, any type of industry support has resulted in a lot of mill closures. And to answer your question, we need to do whatever it takes to start adequately managing our forests. I think they're not.
At what level?
Well, National Forest Service is federal level, right? I also think there's some shared resources that could be done with the state to help encourage it at a state level as well. I don't support transferring public lands to state ownership. I think that's creates more of a tax burden for Montanans when we put those National Forest Service in state hands, and what ends up happening is it'll become privatized, and I don't support privatizing public lands. But that doesn't mean we should not manage them appropriately. We've seen massive cuts across our Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management, and ultimately we don't have the resources out there doing the work to manage our forests and trails and campgrounds and parks appropriately right now. And so I think it's going to become a runaway freight train if we're not careful.
The government says they manage the lands, but they truly mismanage the lands. We have forms right there for people, they're trying to get people, the 5% of private lands, to cut down their trees, separate them and everything, and yet the state or the federal is not doing anything about it. And when a fire comes, they manage the fire. They don't fight the fires. And I mean, something has to be changed because people are losing their homes. Where we came from Oregon, we lost our whole neighborhood, 112 homes, because they were managing the fire. After about 2 weeks and all the homes were lost. Oh, well, we might try fighting it now. They told we're going to try. You know, we need a change because the government's in too much, they don't need it.
Yeah, I think the issue I see is, insurance is on the rise, and I don't blame insurance companies for trying to get out of heavily forested areas because it's such a risk. But insurance is on the rise. We're pricing families out of insurance, home insurance for this entirely.
This end especially.
Yep.
1/3 of the people in our area did not have insurance because they couldn't afford it. And this was 2020, and it's worse now. They're cutting off. People around here are being told you're not going to get your insurance. You're out.
Yeah.
You're out. Yeah.
So you have life or generations sometimes of investment with family properties or structures or what have you that you can't even find insurance for anymore. And if you do get insurance, it's insane the cost that they want for basic coverage. And so I think it's a shared responsibility. Like, yes, do private homeowners have a responsibility to create defensible space? Sure, I can understand that, but at what cost? I mean, that's the problem. Is we're having all of this heavily forested properties like we live in here in western Montana, and even if you create a defensible space around your property, but the surrounding hundreds and thousands of acres are not managed.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do.
There's nothing you're going to do. The fire comes through. Our neighbor next to us, I mean, they had their area was clear. That fire took theirs just as much as it took ours and everybody else's, because the fire doesn't hit in the 5% necessarily of the private owner.
Right.
It hits in those forest areas.
Yeah,
One
it's
of
all the embers and everything
campground
else.
could take us all down up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think it's super pressing issue that's not being given enough attention for sure. I mean, Montana's a prime example, western Montana especially, of the next frontier in terms of what we're seeing in Northern California and some of these areas that have been devastated by forest fires. It's getting warmer. Our forests our tinderbox is just waiting to explode, and I really think it's a high priority issue for sure.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So there was discussions about being able to build an economy here as well as not just the loggers, but to open up our lands. And I come from the 70s, growing up with the work ethic of that, and Job Corps Conservation Corps, Job Corps were some of the things that put management on the lands. Because you had people out there either taking care of slash, taking care of roads, or taking care of putting new trees in. And I'm wondering, is this something that is federally, could be brought back to life? Because we've got kids right here, 16 years old and up, I mean, all the way up to the 30-year-olds that need jobs. And they want jobs here. They don't want to leave to have to get jobs.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, is that something that would
Yeah, I
you
think
can
it's
tuck
part
in
of
your
the-
pocket?
I think it's part of a broader issue of lack of workforce preparation in general. But you look at limiting jobs are on the decline, not the increase. So when you look at what these programs are doing or were doing, it was keeping people working for programs that needed manual labor, manual support.
Can AI
AI can't do that.
that out?
It's not cleaning up your forest, but it is taking a lot of the white collar jobs and office jobs. So I think part of my AI plan or my AI recommendation was that we need to hold these big corporations accountable for the workforce retraining portion of a lot of the careers that are putting people back into manual workforce, working with their hands. Part of that also is, I think, the education system. One of the programs I've talked about. Right now we have Running Start and Gear Up are some of the programs in those 11th and 12th grade years that allow students to cross enroll and graduate with a high school diploma and an associate's degree. But not everyone wants to go to college, and I think we need to create that same opportunity in the trades or in the blue collar workforce to where those students can apprentice that junior and senior year, similar to Job Corps, and maybe even parallel to the Job Corps funding, to where we could utilize that workforce and give them hands-on training that fills a need in places like this where there's not an overwhelming population of people out there able to do the work, so we can share some of that, right? So I think that's a big opportunity in the next 10 years to start shifting the way that we're preparing students for the workforce and retraining, an existing workforce to do things that AI cannot. So.
Back in the day, when I was raised in the neighborhood, and the longer we logged in the area, they would clean it up when we left. And if you drive around Packer Creek now, there's piles of crap that they don't pick up, they don't clean up the limbs or anything. It's pretty sickening.
Yeah, I've seen that too. I mean, they did that similar back behind us in the Mill Creek there. Just slosh everywhere, mess everywhere, but yeah, it's an issue. I think it's a big issue that's been undermanaged for a while. One of the things that I thought was interesting, I've met with a few of these mill companies that are utilizing modern technology to do like cross-laminated timber mills, to where they can log smaller diameter. So these areas where it's really thick, instead of traditional dimensional lumber, is looking for certain dimensions that they can get the most timber out of each stick. Well, this smaller cross-laminated timber can use 1x1 or 2x2 lumber, and it basically creates a glue lamp style product that's straighter, more durable, more efficient, and it allows you to use some of those smaller growth trees in between to where we can leave the old mature standing timber and create that defensible space and still have a product to actually make out of it, instead of coming in and just creating a bunch of slash piles. So if we can use some of that timber, create local jobs, use the product to trap the carbon long term into a housing product that's not just another slash pile burn, then I think it's a more efficient way to log as well. So that's a good opportunity. I know that's on the horizon.
Some beetle-killed wood is highly sought after on the East Coast.
Yep.
we have beetle kill areas out here that are just sitting.
Yep.
I think we sold some up Packer Creek, but it's just sitting. And if we had a mill, imagine, or if we were allowed to have smaller mills, like instead of one giant mill down in St. Regis, we were allowed to open these back. I come from timber family in Washington State. They were put out of business by the federal government.
Yep.
Plain and simple, Bureau of Land Management did not exist when I was growing up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I think there's an opportunity there. That's what I'm talking about. That cross-laminated timber product, you can run a mill with 10, 15, 20 people and create really good jobs, a high quality product that you're not shipping logs 5, 6, 10 hours to.
and you've got the people that don't have 10 trucks.
Yeah.
You have the people that have 1 and 2 trucks that are making money.
Yeah. So it puts it back locally again, which is originally how it started. You know.
I think it starts with our federal government opening up the land.
Yeah.
Our ATV trails and snowmobile trails, they're managed primarily and opened up in the spring, not by Forest Service. Forest Service does some of the big stuff, but our ATV clubs and our snowmobile clubs do a lot of work to keep St. Regis to Lookout open. So it's, I don't know if it's legal, I'm sure it's legal, but it's not exactly, paid for by them. It's
Right.
people that want access to the land, and I think the more access you give some areas, I think the more it will improve. It's kind of like taking cattle off a pasture land and expecting it to grow, and it doesn't. It needs that fertilizer there.
Yeah.
Maybe we're the fertilizer.
Yeah. No, again, I think we gotta put all options on the table and see how we fix some of this, because it's broken. I mean, everyone agrees it's broken. So.
I don't think it's in just Montana though.
No.
The western states especially, Idaho, Washington, eastern Washington especially, have many of the same problems we have. Take away their leadership and their everything else. The living arrangements are pretty much the same, economics.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. Yes, sir.
So, federal forest management policy, which might have had something to do with all the mills closing down. So what changes, how would you take on the environmentalists? What changes would you make to that policy to open things up? A little more specific.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I don't have super specific policy on that. I think the important thing is, it's about finding the balance. We need management and mitigation mixed with conservation.
So your bill proposal, okay, good idea, but you need a critical mass of forest land, local, accessible, gotta be opened up. And if that's not in the cards or that overall policy, then the mill is not economically viable.
Right. The key thing is though, is we still have a lot of these timber sales. The problem is if we start with the timber sale side, in my opinion, it takes way too long. It's an inefficient process. And so you got guys that are looking to bid on these, unless you got tons of equipment, tons of dollars to sit on it, then it's a broken system. It's taking too long. So I think we can speed up the efficiency on that side. As far as opening up the lands that you're saying, a lot of these areas are being logged, but they're taking the logs over state lines now to Idaho and elsewhere to actually harvest the timber. And especially with rising fuel prices, you gotta wonder how long is that sustainable? How long does that actually make sense without, versus having a local option. I know we got Thompson Falls still. We've got small mill up there in Ronan and Pablo. We've got the NDF plant up there in Columbia Falls and a few other options, but it's becoming less and less options here. So
Just to spice things up, when Idaho Forest Group bought, I forget the name of it, the local, in St. Regis, in my humble opinion, they tried shaking down this county and state government for tax break. I don't think they got it, and they left. I think that's part of the equation you gotta recognize.
yeah, a lot of jobs left with it. So facilities sitting there, log decks are still sitting there, but they're shipping them somewhere else.
They take them over there and then they bring them back and ship from there to somewhere else, you know?
Well, a lot of our timber products come from Canada right now. I mean, that's tariff lumber that's coming in as well. So, we're not helping ourselves out. I think, you know, timber's there. I'm a firm believer in forest management. I believe that that's the better way to approach conservation is actually healthy management. Obviously, I'm not a believer in clear cutting and those kind of things. That's an old way of doing it, but most of the outfits now are really efficient, logging outfits that do a really nice job, and there's just nowhere local to actually harvest the timber anymore. So those smaller ones, you would need about, I think the calculation was somewhere around eight of the personnel and space to run a mill like that. So I think there's an opportunity to stimulate that from a federal side. But to your point, you need the supply in order to make it happen.
So when we risque here, hardcore environmentalism, is that a block to the kind of management, property management changes that you had in mind? The guys that don't touch it, leave it go pristine.
They're of course a block, yeah. I think there are some wilderness areas out there that I think leave them be. Most of those are pretty hard to manage anyways, if you get to a lot of that timber, right? Talking up in Bob Marshall and places like that, you're not getting equipment in a lot of those areas anyways. So, rolling back this roadless rule, one, I don't think we have the money to cut a lot of these new roads into those types of places anyways, but a lot of these former log areas, the roads are already there. The problem is in the actual supply chain itself, and you get these groups that don't want to see any logging at all, and it bogs the whole system down. So it's unrealistic. They're living in wooden built houses, and using paper products.
Canadian wood houses.
What's that?
Canadian wood houses.
Yeah, exactly. But fighting the production on our side. So I'm a firm believer there's a middle ground. We can do it responsibly without devastating our forests, but still propping up an industry that we need here. We're not beyond logging. It's someone else is benefiting from the business right now. It's not Montana. So I think there's an opportunity to restore some of that business. It has to be done in a modern way, but I think there's an opportunity there. For sure. Yeah.
So can I say something? DNRC, are you familiar with DNRC? They manage the school trust lands, and they own quite a bit of property, but they do manage forests, and that's where our trail system is. And they'll be logging that periodically, even though we have a right away through it or whatever it is, a land use agreement, and it's beautiful.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is like those look nice. You look out your door and you can see a lot of forest lands that haven't been logged in 80, 100 years that are.
Since the 1910 fire.
Yeah. That are opportunities, and if you don't manage them, if you don't cut them, they burn anyways. So it's not whether, it's saving the forest or anything like that. I think it's a product we need, it's jobs we need.
And the other thing is they're prime hunting areas. Like yesterday when we were out there working, there were 3 people that were out there hunting turkeys. They didn't get any, but it was a lucky day for the turkeys. But they also hunt deer in there, and it's good for the wildlife. So
Yeah.
I don't know why we don't do more of that.
Yeah.
This makes sense.
Well, no bills to send to you right now. It's a starting point. I mean, Sealy closed down there. They've been in operation forever, and a big part of their issue is workforce. It's too expensive for people to live in that area. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest issues facing Montana is revitalizing a workforce industry where the cost of housing here is insane.
So what is your plan for affordable housing?
Yeah, I think affordable housing is one of the most pressing issues because right now the number one thing we're exporting is our youth. So we don't have a workforce of the future to build anything back here. And the way we fix that is housing. We have to address wages. Number one, we haven't seen wage increases in this country in 50 years. And all of that productivity and profit is going to top 1% or top 5%. And that wage disparity has grown since the 80s significantly. So one of those changes, I think we have to change employment law to actually require that productivity ratio to be pushed back into the working class. What that means is a CEO of a major corporation who's making $100 million a year and their frontline workers are making $10 an hour. That's where the problem is we're not capping what that ratio to that CEO to frontline worker pay is. I propose 50 to 1. And when we see that money go back into the working class. If you want your executive suite to do better, you have to take care of the people actually doing the work.
There's a company over in Seattle area, I don't remember what it was, this was like 5 or 10 years ago, where the owner, CEO, he made the same salary as his highest paid people. And actually, I think everybody made the same. So everybody benefited from working productively because they got more money.
Yeah.
And he said, these people are the ones that are working for me. If I didn't have them, I wouldn't be able to do this, so I'm just gonna take the same that they take.
Yeah.
And so, and I think his company is growing. I wish I could remember the name of it, but, and the people that worked there wanted to stay because they did make money. They were able to live, they were able to,
Well, you gotta pay people a living wage. I mean, that's the biggest issue is the same folks who were paying 20 to 30% of their salary towards housing 30, 40 years ago, that same level of salary now would be 80 to 90% of their income for that same house. And that's insanity. And so there's the wage side. I'm not a supporter and turn around and jacking up the federal minimum wage right away. I think what we see is that negatively impacts small businesses. It pushes a lot of small businesses under by doing that. We need to work on it over time, but by jumping it up, had minimum wage kept up with inflation and productivity over the last 40 years, or more than that, since 1968, the average minimum wage would be somewhere between $23 and $25 an hour right now. But yet here we are. It's still less than $10 an hour, and federal, and cost of living is far beyond that. So people have to choose between healthcare and housing. And how are you going to do that in a place like Montana? The only thing you can really choose to drop is healthcare coverage. You need a place to live, and you need heat in your house in this state, whether it's firewood or electricity or
and
anything
then the
else.
hospitals go out of business because people are coming in for
Yeah.
care that they can't afford, and they can't be turned away.
So there's kind of three approaches to the housing side. You have the wage side, which is a big fish to fry, but it's an important one. You have the supply side, which we touched a little bit on with lumber and products, but there's also the labor shortage side. A lot of skilled labor, skilled contractors are the ones building the $20, $30, $40 million houses in places like Yellowstone Club, and we don't have anyone investing in building affordable housing. That's small single-family homes, duplexes, triplexes, apartment buildings, that kind of thing. Part of that is lending reform that's needed, both to support small businesses that have lines of credit and opportunities to borrow to actually build, so they can do the labor and actually have builders building these places without having to have cash to do it. That's a big risk. And the other part is lending reform that helps people get into homes that, the average cost of a 3-bedroom home in Montana right now is $600,000. So you think about a 20% down payment for a young family that's trying to get into a home. I don't know a lot of people that have $120,000 laying around to especially early on in their life, getting a career started to put down on a house. There's also speculative buying. I think we need to look at banning corporations from buying entire markets of homes. You have big corporations like BlackRock that buy 100 homes for sale in a town like Missoula. they sell 10 of them to a shell company that they own for an inflated price. Those houses now become the comp rate for the rest of the homes, and it raises the market value of the entire portfolio for the other 90 homes. But it also raises the price for every other person in that town looking to buy homes as well. So we need to regulate that to where we don't have these massive corporations driving up residential home costs. So that's an important piece of it as well. So it's you know, those kind of three areas of it, along with, you know, improving opportunities for people to get that skilled trade like we talked about, is going to be really important. Or I don't think we're tackling the housing issue anytime soon without a big bubble popping, which could be coming. Interest rates and you know, economy on the decline right now. It's got the markers of another 2008, 2009 type pop. So something to consider. Over here.
Do you know about House Bill 819, the neighborhood works federal government matched 1-to-1
I don't.
bill?
What was that? HB what?
HB 819.
What's the quick rundown on it?
So it allocated $50 million to a home buyer assistance program for home buyers in Montana. I believe other states also received some money, but 46 out of our 56 counties applied for it. 14 of them got it, and Monroe County is the one dispersing it. It takes county-owned land that would otherwise be unused by the county, maybe sitting there stale, and transfers it into a home build that can be purchased by a specific criteria, low income. The goal is to sell the homes at $280,000. So it encourages, you know, that's our workforce here. That's a deputy.
Yeah.
You know, they're not making a lot of money, and $50 million in 14 counties, when some of those counties are Missoula, Beaverhead, and things like that, is not going to go far.
Right.
But it was a 1-to-1 match. State, county, federal government. So is that something you would look into, finding more ways to do things like this?
Yeah, those are the exact programs I'm talking about. Is we have to be creative with creating, you know, house control is the keys to the purse, and we have no problem dropping $2 billion a day in Iran, but creating pathways for home ownership and reducing costs for Americans seems like it's pulling teeth. And I think that's because we've allowed corporations to have too much power in this country. They are all about the bottom line. Americans tend to come last in that thought process. And so to do a lot of this, we got to get money out of politics, which is a totally different segue or conversation. But to answer your question, yes, I think those are the exact opportunities that we need to look at, including builder incentives, I think, as well, to do similar projects where it's, you know, we're incentivizing builders to do that program, to do that work, to build that $280,000 house without it being at a premium to the actual county or buyer. Or the average cost per square foot in Montana now is
The cost of each of the build maxes at $400,000 with both matching funds, but the sale cost is
perfect.
$280,000.
Yeah.
So it's a good investment where
Yeah.
a county couldn't make that investment all by itself.
Yeah. And the cost per square foot to build homes right now in Montana is anywhere from $300 to $600 a square foot. Yeah. So that's the problem. Is even if someone had a nest egg to build on their own, if you're paying that labor, paying those material prices, 300's on the low end right now, unless you're doing the work yourself. You know? So it's
Now we know why tiny homes are catching on.
yeah, that's right. That's right. So. But yeah, I think I'll have to look into that program more. It sounds super interesting. That's what we need, is to be creative and how do we start lifting up some of these communities that can't. No one in Monroe County is buying a $600,000 home. It's just, you're just not. So
They're for sale.
they're for sale, but If you're working here, you're not, I'll put it that way. Right?
That's why you're selling probably.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so.
So, I do have a question about Juliet. Do you know how much you said Monroe County is administering that program?
Yes.
How much county land does Monroe County have? Do you have any idea?
So cadastral's a problem. We all know this. None of the boundaries and lines are right. You have to go back to your survey, your certificate of survey, when you really talk about lines. When I did a cadastral survey for the west end, it said there was no county land unused. But I think there is.
I can't think of
I
any.
think what it is there's small pieces, the old fire department shed down in Henderson. That's, and I don't know what the parameters are. I don't know what size it needs to be, but it does include, the funds include putting the infrastructure into it. But I couldn't, cadastral is a nightmare, so I couldn't tell it what size to look for. I couldn't tell it, 0.1 land up to 100 acres. It
Well, the
wouldn't-
county must have an idea somewhere how much land they own, like a ballpark figure maybe.
This would make sense for some of our small parcels. We've got a city square over here that's not being
Right.
used and needs the cleanup anyway. Or we've got a half an acre parcel down there in St. Regis that's between two larger pieces that are never going anywhere. This is what I see this land as. And there's a formula for how they distribute it. The 400 and the 280 are the base ideas, but there's a formula. If the land is this big, then it's that much, and each county based on their density, population.
No, I'm just thinking about like Superior, and I know that the county has some land out by, where the new garage is, for the bus garage.
Yeah.
That's county land, but I don't think they have a whole lot otherwise. There's some up above.
And that's the point, is if it's not usable for county purposes, let's develop our county.
Right, but I was just curious how much.
I haven't looked at that area. I looked up here and I didn't find anything, and that was disappointing.
Yeah.
We would love to see maybe something like that with state lands.
I know there's a strip along between Diamond Road and the freeway, but I think it's too narrow to do anything with, it's real narrow.
You never know. I don't think it says you can't build tiny homes. I think it says you have to have independent infrastructure. So you couldn't put 4 homes on a 5-acre parcel without separating them.
Right,
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
that's about as much as I know about the bill, other than
Yeah.
I'm really
Yeah.
excited that we got it.
Yeah, that
Oh,
is
yeah, for
exciting.
sure. That's why I was curious, just to.
It started in 2023 and finished in 2025. It was finally federally signed off and the money is
I'll
now.
have to bring that up at our next Economic Development Corporation meeting.
Stay on top of those
Yeah.
commissioners. Those commissioners are the ones that are gonna be understanding how to dole it out.
Well, the Economic Development Corporation, have you ever been to any of those meetings?
I have not. I've wanted the minutes being brought forward for the public. That would be great. So, yeah, that's what I
We
want
should
to see
attend
is
a
the
meeting
community.
live, because that's what their goal is to, what the name says, economic development, obviously, and housing is part of that, so.
Yeah,
We've
HB
not talked about that,
819.
so I'll have to bring it up at our next meeting.
That's the kind of committee that can help steer the commissioners in.
Well, they do that, they did that with the COVID money.
Yeah, no, I meant for this
Yeah,
project,
yeah.
because Dwayne didn't know anything about it. So somebody dropped it in my lap and I read one night.
Yeah, I'll have to write that down.
Heavy reading.
Do some
Do you have some
research.
more questions for me, as well, I think? or-
I don't think so. I'm all about the land and, yeah, let me see.
Well, did you know about the Economic Development Group had a seminar in St. Regis? It was 4 or 5 weeks, one night a week, and it was called Reimagining Rural, to help all the rural areas in the county.
I did not.
It was a community center. We didn't hear about it in Superior until it was halfway over. But
Why isn't that an ongoing thing?
yeah,
And
well,
that's how we connect to get grants.
yeah,
funds.
they're talking about doing that now, extending it, Emily Park. So,
West End wants to be invited. I mean, I know there's other people that want to participate, and we do have newer folks coming in that haven't lived here for 300 years, just 100.
I feel like I've lived here for 100 years.
Your family been here 100 years. Mine has been here 90.
Access timber workforce. Nope, that was pretty much it.
Cool, that's easy. All right. Timber's a hard one. I mean, that's the one that I think we gotta figure out, because it's not just turn the lights back on. We gotta get these companies back in our communities and actually setting up shop again.
Especially when you have a senator that wants it all to burn up so you can make more money.
Yeah,
We're putting new mines.
yeah. So, but it's a, you know, if conservationists, environmentalists need to know that carbon is stored in our trees. And if you don't use the timber product and it burns, carbon is released out into the atmosphere. And so if you are serious about greenhouse gases and slowing down, it's important to store that carbon in the form of wood products in homes. And so it's actually a good thing for conservation to harvest timber and let other trees grow up behind it.
So, timber, new mining. Which one would you say new mining is something you would support in this county? Because this is a mining county.
I think as long as it's responsible, I don't have an issue with mining. I think a lot of the modern mining practices are very effective and responsible. It's not like we saw 50, 100 years ago. But there's some that are trying to be fast tracked, like the Sheep Creek mine is down by Darby. It's a gallium mine. It's not open pit, but the byproduct of the gallium is thorium. And thorium is radioactive, and it's about 300 feet off of the headwaters of the Bitterroot River. And so you're talking about massive risk for very little reward. And so that is where I'm saying responsible is we need gallium. 98% of gallium comes out of China. Everyone that's got a phone in here today has gallium on their person. It's used for semiconductors. It's a rare earth. As they start ramping up these data centers and everything, they're going to want a whole bunch of it, which is why they're trying to ramp up mines like that. But you're talking about devastating an entire ecosystem down through the Bitterroot. That's not just the river, but it's tourism, it's agriculture, it's everybody's livelihood in terms of drinking water. That would be put at risk with thorium intoxication to that river system. So that's a very bad, you know, on the flip side, that's the bad example. And then, you know, I think counties like this one, is there opportunities to reinvigorate mining operations that are going after metals that we need? I'm sure there's probably lots of regulations keeping them from doing it. So
Bunker Hill in Idaho is opening back up.
are they? Yeah. So so if I had to choose, I think obviously we need both. I think timber industry is a much cleaner, environmentally safe option out of those two. But you know, depending on the mine, we're going to need those. The wave of the future is technology and all of this stuff that requires rare earths or copper or any of the precious metals is going to need access to those. I met with a company that, you know, a lot of these rare earths can be extracted from fly ash, coal fly ash, and so they're taking dozens and dozens of years of fly ash like places like Colstrip, and they can process it and extract the rare earths that they're wanting out of these same mines out of existing product instead of mining for it new. So that's a pretty cool idea. It's a new industry that could be emerging.
The coal strip is a union operation.
Yeah.
Also recycling batteries.
Yeah, but recycling across the board. You know, a lot of people throw their phone away when they're done with it, and it's, you know, efforts to reclaim some of those conductors and stuff inside of there would be smart. Instead of having them end up in a pit somewhere, you know, landfill. So I think there's a lot of countries that are already doing that. The U.S. is very consumer driven. We buy, new, and we don't actually think of ways to refurbish some of the stuff that we have. So I think there's an opportunity
So
there
I know in
too.
Nevada, they have a program where they have like a box, just a box that people can just put any kind of battery into this box. And then it's picked up by this company that then recycles all those batteries and separates out the different minerals that are in, or different components and stuff that are in those batteries, like lithium and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if they are looking at expanding, but I know that's something that is happening in Nevada.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, batteries are improving so fast right now that a lot of that is stripping them down for parts and repurposing them in newer setups. But I really think that's the way to the future. I think jobs in Montana are going to be in renewable energies. Montana is one of the few states that is ripe for opportunity between wind and solar. And you look at a country like China, who was almost completely coal driven 5 years ago, has shifted their entire economy to be heavily wind and solar, and thousands and thousands of jobs created because of that infrastructure that was built. As we're having this increasing power demand, I think even just with Iran, we can all say relying on petroleum to generate that type of power is not going to be good for end consumers. Whereas some of this diverse energy structures, wind and solar, are the way of the future. We just actually have to invest in it. And that means getting the lobbyists on Capitol Hill in check that are controlling decisions being made right now.
Especially, I have read an article in one of my magazines about how they used to say the wind turbines, like out in the ocean, disrupted the marine ecosystem. And at the time of building them, yes, but since they've been, working, and there's not people out there disturbing the waters and stuff, it's actually improved the ecosystem. The animals, seals, whales, are coming back. The mollusks are attaching to the turbine and stuff, and so they actually say it's better in some respects, but they're afraid that predator animals are going to start coming because they realize those other animals are there. So, but it's improved. So the turbine type wind turbines are not affecting the ecosystem as much. So,
Yeah, even just painting one blade black on a wind turbine, they found reduces the bird kills on those by like 78%. Just painting one black because it gives us something to see.
Try that with my windows.
Yeah.
I know.
So,
All right. Sounds good.
what is your opinion on the data centers?
Yeah.
Because that takes a heck of an infrastructure, a lot of water, and then the pollution left off from it as well.
Yeah, it's been a topic here in the last couple months, especially. But I'm a big supporter of. I think we need to slow down, press pause, and make sure that we have the right guardrails in place to actually before we move forward. So we talked a little bit about education retraining. I think we also need to start teaching our students in our school systems how to actually think and operate in an AI world, because a lot of the ways that we are preparing students for jobs are going to be null and void in the future. But in a place like Montana, I got to tell you, the biggest concern that we should be focused on is giving unregulated access to these data centers coming in that are going to consume insane amounts of water, use up. So I'll give you an example. That Broadview facility in eastern Montana uses over 550 million gallons of water. The one facility will use more power than the rest of the state combined, and it's over 5,000 acres. And so the projection in DC, when I took these meetings in November about AI, they project that 50% of our farmlands will be data centers within a decade.
Well, it's already happening in central Washington.
Yep.
Wenatchee has a whole bunch of them.
So, you know, and there's technology out there that's being developed right now to put them in space, and so it just needs time. So, you know, it's solar driven, it's cold there, and we already have a satellite, you know, array there, and so you can't make more land. I mean, going back to your point of having a lot of this today, this conversation being about land use, that fits right into that bucket of, do we want to use our only farmland with fertile soil to put a big massive concrete structure on and then have it suck up 550 million gallons of water? I mean,
And
there's
put
just zero
all
common
pollutants
sense.
back.
Say again?
And put pollutants back.
And then, exactly. And so, I think there's a lot of good that can come from AI, but I don't think there's so much good that can come from AI that we proceed without caution on the data center side of AI. And we've really got to press pause and get those guardrails in place. So I think we're going to look back in 10 years from now and be like, man, what did we do? We messed this up, you know. So, and there's no jobs that come from it. That's what, you know, I've been kind of in a pissing match with the union leadership in Montana because they're really pushing this in. And I'm saying, look, you're going to get a few months of labor potentially, maybe, constructing these things. Probably not even Montana jobs. It's probably teams coming in from out of state, building them. And the jobs are gone after that. And they take jobs with them when they leave. And so I don't think it's as, the grass isn't greener on the other side on this to me. I don't think it is at all. So
Times have changed in Montana, and I joined the union right out of high school, and worked till I was
58.
58. I retired at 58 with a damn good union pension, and battling to keep these operations going. Mom was on the election board in Saltese for 30 years, and there were 35 voters, one Republican. The railroad workers were all union, the highway workers were all union,
yep.
all the neighbors.
Who was the Republican?
All right. Well,
Thank you, Russ.
thank you guys for being here again.
I ran out of questions.
Great. Good seeing y'all. And,
But they were all good questions, because these are things that I have in my head that,
well, these are ones that haven't come up with other stuff, so it's good to get some outside of the box that I can look into as well.
but this AI thing really,
I warned you I would have the
I love it. No,
that's good.
different questions.
that's good. It's important information. These are questions that should be getting asked. You know, we have a lot of the same standard stuff.
And you didn't have to debate someone else or hold a microphone or you didn't have a time limit. That's the best part.
Yeah, that's the best part. So.